This video is brought to you by the Murder of Crows podcast, a Khador themed podcast on Hand Cannon Online. To check out the podcast, click the link in the description below. Hello guys, and welcome to the review of the Man of War Forge Seer. Oh my days, I'm so excited for this. I'm the producer of this lovely YouTube channel. I'm Lee, and you guys are in for a treat. So, in this review, we will be looking at the model stats and the overall look of the physical model too. So, if you're a fan of the podcast, which I mentioned at the beginning, Murder of Crows, you know where I stand on the Khadorian units, also known as Man of Wars. Now, if you're new to the hobby, these guys to me are like giant medieval knights. They're basically these, normal Khadorian soldiers just strapped in these giant steam-powered armor suits, Kind of feels like Gundam a little bit when you say it out loud and stuff like that, but they serve the Khadorian forces in many different ways in the faction. To give you guys a brief insight, we have, the standard trooper classes of Man of Wars, which, are the shock troopers, the demo corps, and the bombardiers, and all these guys serve a different purpose in the army, and all of them are really cool. The shock troopers have axes and, giant shields with cannons on them. You've got the demo corps, who effectively are like running around with giant hammers that pretty much are like, Thor's hammer. What more can you ask for? And then the bombardiers. Now, the bombardiers don't get played that much, but come on, look at this guy. He's got a giant chainsaw and a grenade launcher. If that doesn't scream Gears of War or something else like that, I don't know what will. But anyway, these are your general types of Man of War units you'll see in the Khadorian faction. But we also have a few solos, in our faction as well. There's 3 to date. Which are, the Man of War mechanic. This is basically, like I said before, a giant armored suit, but he's a mechanic, and he helps repair Man of Wars and other units, etc. We also have the Man of War Dragoon, very, very popular right now in the meta of all Khador, because who doesn't want to see this guy riding on a giant horse? And he's incredibly useful, and he's a fantastic solo. And also, we have the Man of War Kovnik. Doesn't see table quite as much anymore, but this guy is basically like your Jack Marshall. You can shove a Jack on him, and he's a pretty powerful solo on his own. So when Privateer Press announced they would be releasing a new Man of War solo figure, all of us in the Khador community had several questions, like, what would it do, and what would it look like, And the best way to describe it, what Privateer Press told me at a convention a few years back, Doug Seacat, yes, that lovely man, that lovely myth, and the legend also told me this. You will love this model if you're a fan of the Greylord Turnians. Now, the Greylords, just to get off topic, these guys are, the secret, like I like to say, SAS people of the Khadorian faction. They're arcanists. They develop loads of awesome things for the Khadorian faction, such as, cortexes for the warjacks, and, they all have this mystical powers, and, they're a bit shady, and everything's always behind doors action. So effectively think, if you wanted things done, you would go to the Greylords, and they probably will find a way. These guys are pretty awesome. So effectively, when you think about the possibilities of what this model could play like, or even look like, your mind starts to go certainly in different directions. But, when we saw the first early sculpt to this model, well, let's just say, we were very pleased. Look at this badass mother trucker. This guy looked epic. The first thing that stands out to me when I first saw this was probably, what other people saw as well, was the fact that his weapon is freaking massive. Look at the size of that giant axe. It was ginormous. And you'll see later in the view when I actually look at the model as well how big the axe truly is. But it just reminds me so much of Madrak's axe. It's just humongous. It's pretty much a third of the model. It's just fantastic. But moving on, we got this absolute stunning model, and we all loved it in the Khador community, I think. Well, I hope so, because, you know, just look at this thing. And if you didn't like the look of this model, then I think you should have gone to Specsavers or something. I'm not so sure. But anyway, when you see a model, the next thing we as a community of gamers start thinking is, what is this model's card going to be? What is his stats are going to be like? And now again, if you heard us talk about this beast on the podcast, you know we are excited about this model and its potential on the table. But when we got the card, the community was, let's just say, split. So without further ado, let's take a look at the Forge Seer's card. Okay, so here is the lovely Forge Seer's card. Now, here we go. The general stats are Speed 4, Strength 9, Mat 6, Rap 5, Def 10, Armor 16, Command 7. He's also immune to cold, and he is a Jack Marshal. His rune weapon has Reach, which is 2 inches, it has a power of 5, and its power and strength is 14. And it is a magical weapon, which is pretty awesome. He's got 8 damage boxes. You can have a field allowance of 2 of these guys, and he's going to be costing you 4 points to put in your army. Now, that's just the general stats of it, and I'm you know, so far so good. Magical weapons, pretty useful. You know, he's basically like your bog standard man of war. But then we get to the back of this card. So, the Forge Seer. He is a battle wizard, so once per turn, when this model destroys one or more enemy models with a melee attack during its activation, immediately after the attack is resolved, it can make one magic ability, special action, or special attack. So, that's pretty awesome to begin with, but he's also got drive because he is a Jack Marshal. Okay, he has a specific drive if you decide to take him as a Jack Marshal, and it's called Dark Seagulls. Oh, Seagulls? I'm sorry if I'm saying it wrong. My dyslexia is running riot. But anyway, he basically says, while in this model's command range, the melee and ranged weapons of the Warjack under its control gain Blessed and damage type magical. That is huge for Khador, because we don't have that much, you know, magical attacks. If you think about it, most warcasters have a magical weapon, but to be quite frank, other than Ruing and maybe, say, Greylords and other things like that, there's not a lot of magical, you know, attacks or damage. And there's a lot of, you know, armies in this whole game of Warmachine and Hordes that rely on, you can't damage me if you only have a magical attack. So that is very, very awesome. He's got magic ability 7, which is quite key. So now, we're going to go into his spells. Now, obviously, this is what he has. He has Empower, which is a star action, command range. Now, target friendly faction Warjack. If the target Warjack is in range and was suffering disruption, it is no longer disrupted. The Warjack also gains 1 point of focus. Now, that is awesome because disruption's a thing currently, obviously because of Signar. That's right, those filthy swans. And I think it's really cool to finally have something that basically starts giving more focus out. And, you know, it's pretty darn awesome. That's the first thing that comes to my mind, is like, it has Empower, and also your Jacks can also have magical weapons. This guy at the moment is screaming, I want to have it. Next one we have is Hoarfrost, which is a star attack, and Hoarfrost is range 8, AoE 3, power 14, magic attack that causes cold damage. That's right, that's why that little icon's there. On a critical hit, models in the AoE become stationary for 1 round unless they have immune to cold. So a pretty decent spell, very Greylord-esque nonetheless. Now, the final spell he has, which is a star action, is Winter's Wind. Now, it's range 5, target friendly faction warrior model with immune to cold. Now, if the model is in range, it gains Freezer. Now, Winter's Wind lasts for 1 round, and when an enemy model with immune to cold ends its activation within 2 inches of a model with Freezer, the enemy model becomes stationary for 1 round. Now, there's an ongoing joke on our podcast, I'm not gonna lie, and it involves Sorcerer. Now, obviously, Epic Sorcerer has Freezer just built in, so if you go too close to that woman, because she's so cold-hearted, you know, you'll be frozen. Now, the Greylord has this as a star action / magical ability. That is really cool, and I'm pretty happy with that. Also, on his card, he is repairable, which means he can be targeted for friendly basic repair action, so he can be repaired, which is pretty cool. And also on his rune weapon, he has critical freeze, so on a critical hit, the model hit becomes stationary for 1 round unless it is immune to cold. So that is the Forge Seer's card. Hopefully you guys like it. Please leave a comment below on this video on YouTube, and if you're watching it on our Facebook group of Murder of Crows, leave a comment in the comment section when we post this on Facebook to get your thoughts on it, because just going through this again makes me really want to play him with so many different things. Maybe, dare I say it, a victor or a conquest. Jack Marshall by this guy could be pretty interesting. You know, just think about those big cannons and other things. There's just so many shenanigans popping through my head. Just, you know, crit Devin and making them frozen is pretty interesting if they come into base to base with him in combat and stuff. You know, the possibilities are endless with this guy. So, now, with the card out of the way, let's get straight into the look of this model. So let's break out the model. Now, as you can see, Privateer Press always package their things really well, but one thing that I didn't expect is that we don't have a card in this, but everything's becoming digital because of obviously the erratas and stuff. So you can find the cards for this in the description below as well. I'll leave a link to Privateer Press so you can see that stuff. But without further ado, let's get straight into unboxing this bad boy. Right, so the kit comes technically in 7 pieces. You've got the base, the main chassis of the Man of War, his cape, his right arm, his left arm, his lovely hat, and his little tassel. That's right, he has some sort of tassel tagged to his armor. So, with that being said, let's move straight into the main chassis. And here he is, guys. Look how absolutely stunning this guy looks. Look at all the glorious bling on him, as I like to call it. He's got loads of medals on him saying that he's part of Khador. He's also got all his Greylord bling on there, which is fantastic. And as you can see, he is just a ginormous model. He just looks fantastic. As you can see, we're just going to rotate it around here. There we go. It has his back, basically wearing that lovely Man of War armor that we know. His head looks so small in this, it's fantastic, but obviously you put the hat on, which is fine. Obviously, when it comes to modeling and casting and stuff, you're going to have to remove some mold lines. There's just one there on that side of the mini, but as you can see, he looks amazing. It's unreal. So we're going to get straight into the cape, and as you can see, this also has a ton of flipping bling on it. It has so much detail on it, it's fantastic. Privateer Press really knocked it out the park with this. And as you can see, when I put it basically next to the model, it's the size of the model, even bigger. The cape is as bigger than the Man of War model itself. But as you can see, let's rotate it around and see these shoulder pads. As you can see, it's got awesome ruins in, basically nodding it to basically, you know, the Greylord Turnian and stuff like that, and just basically showing that he is a new elite part of the Man of War solos, etc. And it just looks fantastic. Most of this, most of the back there would be covered by the model, but as you can see, there's more bling, and it just looks fantastic, and it's just so detailed. It's fantastic. But as you can see, when they cast it, obviously you're going to have to trim the bottom of it to get rid of those bits, but it cleans up very, very easily. So, moving on, we're going to get straight into the axe. And as you can see, look at the size of this thing already. It's quite big, and again, it is beautifully detailed. It looks fantastic. It just looks stunning, and it just adds so much to the model. Now, the funniest thing which we're going to shoot now is, that's my hand, and that's the size of the axe. It's quite a beast of an axe. Not gonna lie. So we're gonna move on to the other hand, which basically I like to call basically the Iron Man hand, because effectively he's just going, yeah, Iron Man, which is always good fun and basically gives him that dramatic pose. So moving on, we're going to move into the hat that basically goes onto the lovely Grey Seer's head. Very awesome, you know, just Khador standard as always. So the tassel, as I like to say. This is the final part of the tassel. It goes on there, it fits on the bottom of that model like that, but I'm not going to put the tassel on the bottom because I just think it looks stupid. That's my personal preference. Let me know in the comments below. But here we go. I've started putting the model together, and this is what it looks like on the bases that I do. I've put him on a bit of cork to give him a bit more of a dynamic pose to basically make it off the base as well, because when you play games, you don't want the model, you know, touching the bases and stuff like that, because it can get quite, you know, just frustrating if you've ever gone to tournaments and stuff like that. But he just looks really menacing, and especially when you put the arms and the axe on. I blue tacked them in place just to show you guys what it would look like. Now, I'm just going to move it aside and show you something special. Now, this is my old witch that I just recently finished painting. Just look at the size comparison in the models. It is ridiculous how big this guy is. Obviously, he's on cork, which helps it a little bit, but you can just see how big the model truly is. It is just absolutely stunning. So guys, without further ado, that is the Greylord Forge Seer. Thank you for watching. Please leave a comment below. Let us know your thoughts on the lovely man himself. Also, comment below if you've picked one up and if you might want to pick one up just because the model is absolutely stunning. Also, leave a like if you've enjoyed this episode. Don't forget to check out our podcast of Murder Occurs on Hand Cannon Online. The link is in the description. You can find us on Facebook and Twitter. The links are also in the description. And until next time, guys, take care. Have a good one, and hopefully you will be picking up a Man of War solo, because this Greylord is one badass mother trucker.